To Somalia next, where thousands of people have been returning to rebuild the country since the stabilization of the politics and a gradual drop-off in the levels of violence from Al-Shabaab. I say drop-off in violence, but you'll be forgiven for wondering what that means, given that we regularly report on bombings and attacks, even as the government claims to be gaining the upper hand. What we're hearing more and more, though, is the assassinations of high-profile people who are returning from all over the world to rebuild Somalia. These people, like the mayor of Mogadishu or the journalists Awil Dahir and Hodan Laya, all of whom were killed in bomb blasts fairly recently, were killed because of who they were and what they were doing. Just yesterday, Almaz Elman, a Somali-Canadian activist, was shot in Mogadishu. And while the circumstances of her killing are not yet clear, it does beg the question, are these killings scaring off people? We'll hear from someone who has been wrestling with this. But first, Abdisalam Guled, who's an expert on security and counter-violence, and he's been telling me more about Almaz's death.
What we do know so far, the place where she was killed, it was not only one bullet. I think it was around the bullets. Another bullet was found in a nearby vehicle and was discovered later. They were about the 5-kilometer distance from the airport. There was a government, military, and the other agencies who were fighting and firing each other, anti-aircraft and machine guns. And what we do know at the same time was the bullet which discovered from the body is 14 millimeter, which fired normally from the Dashika or some to call it KVP, the anti-aircraft machine guns. But we don't know if that was aimed at her or if it was a straight bullet. But it looks like a straight bullet as far as we know.
What do the police say?
The Somali government issued a statement promising that they will do all they can to carry out the thorough investigation to find out what happened. Still, we don't have any result, and still we don't have any answer. The other important thing is we probably need to ask ourselves is why the government, the soldiers, are fighting in a range where they can reach the international airport and international camp, where foreign embassies and international NGOs and agencies are occupied.
Do you think that the returnees are being targeted in Somalia?
Of course, they've been targeted, and it's not secret, it's not hidden. Al-Shabaab announced it a while ago. Whoever come back to Somalia and claim the Somalia is in a stable place, and especially the diasporas, those who are coming back with the knowledge, those who are coming back with the investment and the money, they will be targeted. And of course, and diasporas being killed, particularly for those who are coming back with something in their hand, in their mind.
Is it frightening people off from going back to Somalia, or are they defiant in the face of this?
By the nature of the Somali people, they are very resilient people. They are very, very hardworking and brave people. And I do see people who are coming back and not being frightened and threatened by the Al-Shabaab and intimidations.
That's Abdisalam Guled, an expert on security, counter-violence and extremism. Now, Dr. Hodan Ali is a senior advisor of the Durable Solution Unit in Mogadishu. After living most of her life in Canada, she moved back to Mogadishu in 2016. So do the targeted killings scare her? She began by telling me what brought her back to her homeland then.
So I had left Somalia early 1989. I first returned 2011 during the famine with a medical team from Canada. I had contributed with the team that I had come with, but I had realized that there's more work to be done. But I couldn't stay at the time, so then I went back home to Canada. Then in 2016, opportunities presented themselves for me to come back and really take part in the redevelopment of the country. So when I came back 2011, I saw really how desperately expertise and knowledge was needed. As you know, after the Civil War, my background is in primary healthcare, and I think, given the context of the country and how devastated the health systems have been and the health status of the nation, I knew that was, a part that I can contribute in, and therefore I decided to come back and actually open a primary healthcare facility in the heart of Mogadishu, and start, helping people rethink what healthcare is and what primary healthcare is. A tale of two countries, right? So I left as a child where the country was still intact. We still had a functional government. The beauty and the successes of Somali was still in my head. Growing up, there's tragedies like most families of Somali descent. My father died in the civil war. My sister died in around the same time. So there's those two sort of conflicting realities that I grew up with. The country that I remember, but the country that really has turned into a place that's ravaged by war and conflict. But still, that hope never left. And over the years, as I became an adult and professional, there was more, it became more pressing for me to be able to come back and give and contribute to the place where, my father gave his life to protecting it. And so it became a personal mission to be able to come back and give back my knowledge. So when I landed, I was devastated because, as a kid, you have these images, and in reality, this is what it was: completely destroyed city. Over the years, it started to rebuild. 2011, it was a war zone. Now it has a lot of challenges, but it's a city that's recovering and it's building. And it's telling a story of a country that, the romantic perception that we have as diaspora. Of a country beautiful that we left, but over the years has changed its face and its personality. And it's a painful reality. We had lost some really significant people just in this year alone. Hodanale, who's a Canadian journalist, Somali Canadian journalist who came back and was killed recently. I lost Mayor Yeriso, the late mayor of Mogadishu, who I'd worked very closely with. I was his senior advisor on displacement. Yesterday, we had lost Almas to something similar. It really strikes at the heart of most of us who have come back here, in the attempt of making things better and contributing and rebuilding this country. We feel a bit more vulnerable than the rest because of just the visibility of the work that we do, some of us. And, there are people feeling threatened by that, particularly in the extremism elements of the country. But however, you come because there's a greater mission, there's a greater purpose, right? This is home. This is, where most of us feel that there is a need to give back and to make sure that, the next generation Somalis are able to prosper more than what we've missed out. But the reality is that, we have families, I have 3 kids, I have a mother, a husband, and that every time something like this happens, it just stops you in your tracks, and makes you think, wow, where is this going and who is next, right? But again, you understand that in the end, when you came back, some of this was a risk that we have taken. But where is to go back? Go back to Canada and live peacefully. Yes, it's an option, but running away is not an option. This is our country, and in the end, it's waiting for Somalis to fix Somalia.
And that was Dr. Hudan Ali, a senior advisor of the Durable Solution Unit in Mogadishu.